3, 2, 1, and we're live.
Jewelry.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Let's Talk Bling podcast. Once again, I am doing this podcast without a jeweler, and it has nothing to do with bling at all. But I figured, with what better way to do it than one of my good friends. I'll give you the intro that I always do, and I give everybody their fair share of flowers during it. The guy that I'm going to be introducing today is a really good friend of mine. That's my boy for quite some time now. Yeah. He is a Miami DJ. He is a staple of Miami DJ scene. He is probably one of the funnier, unintentionally funny dudes I've ever met in my life. We've had some crazy times together.
Funny times, yep.
Yeah. And he's from the old school of DJing, and he still somehow has found a way to cut his slice of pie and evolutionize, if that's not even a word, but fuck it, I'm going to use it anyway, into the new scene. And we're going to talk about it today. We're going to talk about his story. We're going to talk about a bunch of fun stuff. You guys are going to get to know him, and I think it's going to be a really good scene. So without further ado, Ariel Assault is in the building.
What's up?
Damn, I gotta put
one of those. Yeah,
Ariel. Ariel, introduce yourself to the crowd to let them know what you do and who you are.
What's up, man? I'm Ariel Assault. I DJ out here in Miami, all across.
All across with a T?
All across. I usually play a lot in South Beach, Brickell, Wynwood, sometimes Fort Lauderdale, sometimes travel. But, just been doing it for a long time, and I hope to keep doing it for a little bit longer. So,
Ariel, there's no hiding the fact that you have some gray hairs on you.
I'm
so
seasoned.
as a seasoned DJ, how many more years you got in you, bruh?
I don't know. I mean, they some people say it correctly. You could be up, go into your 50s and mid 50s as long as you're choosing what you want to do at that point. I think if you're, you want to have the liberty to turn down gigs, you want to have the liberty to focus on things that make you happy still as a DJ. And that to me justifies you being able to DJ as long as you want. Honestly.
And the cool part is, to be honest with you, without getting sidetracked here, is ultimately, bro, you're doing, and you've been blessed enough to do something that you genuinely love. I mean, I don't think you go to work, really. I mean, you just go, this is what you do for a living, right? But you've been doing this for how long?
Like about 22 years, like in the clubs, so I'd say like 22, maybe like 23 one year. I was doing like a bunch of house parties and like the backyard abuela parties and like, the trial and error parties,
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, so many people live a mundane and like do these monotonous careers that they absolutely hate for 22 years. So how crazy is it that you've been able to do this?
No, I mean, I'm extremely lucky. Somehow I was able to be consistent. And I think it just goes to, it all comes down to like loving what you do. And if you love what you do, it's not work to study it. It's not work to keep up with it and to do all the things you need to do to make it successful and to make it a career.
Hell yeah. I mean, I start off the podcast and I want to always do this because I find it, at least for me, bro, like the most interesting part about anything in Netflix, on HBO, any of the platforms that you stream on. I love documentaries. Right. I love real life shit. I love it. So I love to tell this, or I ask you this question because it's something that I find the most interesting. People usually meet someone when they're in the public eye, I should say, when you're already at the end of the road, when you've gone through all the crap, and that's really where the masses get to know someone because they ate all that shit to get to the top.
Right.
And then now's when you meet them. I like to get to know people or know their story in the come up, in the ugly parts, in the parts where nobody knew who the hell Ariel Assault was. So how did you get started? Talk to me from the very first time you scratched a turntable.
Yeah, so pretty much I had been playing music before, like in high school and college, but I just knew that it wasn't going to be my thing. I was looking for another direction. Honestly, I already had known music pretty well. I had been listening to a lot of different albums, either hip hop or house or whatever. I was just into it, whatever. So I went to a club saw what the DJ's doing, and for whatever reason, I was like, yeah, man, I can totally do that. That's what I want to do. It just kind of clicked, you know. And then luckily at the time,
Did you have any other passions at that time?
honestly, I was like kind of stuck in a weird place because I didn't want to play. I used to play trumpet, but you know, I got burnt out.
You did used to play trumpet. I remember.
I got burnt out in college, and then I was like, well, what do I do now? Like, you know, that was my thing. I was going to be like this great trumpet player, and then
That's right, dude.
the best in the world. And then
Tell
all of
the
a
story
sudden,
of
and then all of a
your
sudden,
trumpet.
you know, my teacher's like, well, no, man, you know, maybe this isn't your direction. And I'm like, okay.
In other words, you suck.
And so, you know, and they were like, oh, why don't you get into music education? You know, be a teacher. And I'm like, man, I'm not trying to be a teacher at 22. That wasn't my goal. My goal was to be on stage with, you know, the Grammys playing, you know, with the band. You know, it's just something like crazy, like at that level. And that kind of deflated me. So, and so I was like, what do I do now? You know, I was a music guy, and, you know, so then I go to the counselors like, well, why don't you do business? And I'm like, all right. And I get enrolled myself into all these business classes, business administration, business calculus, and I failed all of them, like all of them. And I go back to the counselor, and he was like, yeah, business isn't your thing. How about the liberal arts? Let's get you into liberal arts. And I'm like, damn, that sucks. You know, I mean, nothing against liberal arts. You know, it's a degree,
for
but
sure. Let me tell you what
it's-
serious degree that is.
but that's pretty much what they had summed up for me. So I was like in this weird position where I was like, what am I going to be doing? You know, I was working at some insurance company making minimum wage, just like, you know,
That's awful.
doing data entry and stuff like that. So, you know, this whole DJ thing, when it came up, it was a great, like, you know, it's a great save because it's like, okay, cool. Now I have something I can really put my energy towards. And it so happens that my mom was dating a DJ at the time who ended up becoming my stepdad. But he wanted to get in my good graces. So he was like, here, you know, take all this equipment, learn how to play with it. You don't have to go out and buy it. I have it for you. It was like a belt drive turntable and an old mixer, but it was just enough for me to mess with, you know?
Oh, so he was like an actual, was a pro DJ or just was kind of like
he was an older DJ that was, you know, he was, I think, in his 50s, but he was doing these local pubs and clubs and stuff like that. And, you know, so he met my mom at one of those. He had a night off. And then he actually invited me to go watch him perform at these clubs, and that got me even more excited about it because I'm like, oh man, it's such a cool thing. And it was new to me. It was completely new. You know, you're in this booth, you're commanding the crowd, everybody's just having a great time, and I'm just like, man, this is what I want to do. This is it. This is the direction.
How far did that journey go of learning it and putting in the work? Because you know they always have like that thing where it's like, oh, you got to do something 10,000 hours before you do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Tell me how that goes down. So now, like, you know, you want to be this DJ.
Yeah, and you know, and it's funny because at first you think you really got it because, you know, oh yeah, I know all the new songs, and it's as easy as knowing all the new songs and like being able to collect all the records and just playing all the new songs.
Did
like,
you play on records? It was
Yeah,
because there was no
started-
digital thing
No, I
back
mean,
in
they
the
had
60s when you were.
in the 70s, the 8-track. No, but we were still on records, and I mean that was how I wanted to do it because I'd seen DJs with records, and that was the whole spiel. It was like, if I'm gonna be a DJ, I'm gonna do it like the cool DJ way and have the records, and so that was when I started collecting all the records one by one. You know, and it's expensive. It was like $5 each record, and then, you know, and if you wanted like house records that were like what do you call it? Foreign, out of, you know, you'd have to pay more. Like, you have to pay $10 a record. So you had to, like, you know, put some money into it.
And it's just like, because like now I don't think there are a lot of people that know really, like, because for instance, like now I want a new song, or now I'm a DJ, right? 2023 DJ. A new song comes out, you download it on your phone, you put it in your laptop with it. So how did that work? How did the process of you being able to practice? Because I can't imagine you were crate hunting and like.
So I mean, you really had to be back then. I mean, there wasn't a lot of streams and avenues to hear music. So really, you know, it was either, you know, going to the club and hearing what was going on, what these DJs were playing. Like some of them, you know, got their promos from like radio stations way before the other DJs, and they kind of were able to pick and choose which ones, or there were certain ones that were getting pushed more, so they would play them in the clubs and get great responses. So your job was to be in the streets and seeing what people liked and then also like being on top of radio and then buying albums at the time and trying to figure out what was going to be the record and then going out to the record store hoping that they had all these songs. And you had to be quick because they had like maybe 7 records of this particular single. And then once 7 DJs bought it, it would take forever for them to get them back, or maybe they weren't going to release it again. So it was like you had to be at the record store like 10 a.m. when they're like, stocking up and just making sure you got that record, even if it was like a white label, which they made, which is pretty much a bootleg. And so, you were just excited. And that's how you would try to be better than everybody else. You had that hot track. And it wasn't as easy as downloading it. Only a couple people would have this particular hot track. It wasn't like everybody could download it or everybody can buy this record. It was maybe 10 records of it, and you got one of them.
Oh, that's super interesting. That's so crazy.
It was a completely different perspective on DJing and how, it was an ability to stand out as far as like having the hot stuff,
Yeah.
So it was cool.
How was your first gig? Now, I overheard this story one time, but I want to hear it with painful details as well.
I'll go to the first club gig, and it was funny because they only.
Well, actually, before that, how was it like the first gig?
Oh, the first gig ever. Okay, first gig ever was it was a friend of my mom's, and we would, it was some like family party, and actually I actually did pretty well. All I did was play a bunch of like top 40 songs, older people stuff, and they had a blast. So my first experience was really good. My second experience was really bad. I did a Sweet 16, which came from that party, and she was
got a referral.
Yeah, she came up to me. She was like, "Oh, can you do my Sweet 16?" And I was like 22, and I'm like, "Yeah, I can do it." Like I was like this cool 22-year-old, gonna do your Sweet 16, whatever. And so I get there, and and they're like, "Oh my God, there's the DJ and whatever." And I'm like thinking I'm cool. I'm like, I got my Echo shirt on. I'm, fly. I'm looking fly. Like I'm gonna rock this 16s. And funny enough, we set up everything, and I'm playing, and everything was going good, and the first hour was good, and then all of a sudden I keep hearing my speakers going in and out, and I'm like, "What is that?" I don't even know how to, I didn't know anything technical at the time. So I wouldn't know how to troubleshoot a failing speaker. Maybe it was a short, that I didn't know. So whatever, it kept going, and then all of a sudden stopped. Like just the speakers.
In the middle of the party?
Right when everybody was there, about an hour and 30 in, the speakers just stopped working. And I'm like, oh my God, freaking out. Like, and this girl's like, "Oh my God, you're ruining my party!"
No, I don't believe that.
Flipping out, hilarious. It was, and I couldn't figure it out. And I'm like, "Oh my!" And I'm here like breaking my head for 45 minutes. Like, and this party's still going on. And and so for whatever reason, I don't luckily, their next door neighbor happened to be a DJ. Go figure. So he comes over and he goes, "Oh." And he fixed it in like 2 seconds.
What the hell was it?
It was a short. So it was a short. It was something that the wires were clicking together and they shouldn't have. And so I go back on, and obviously
you're the villain now. You cannot save that crowd.
That was it. It was over. No matter what I played, and I tried to play. I tried to put extra effort into my set, and it didn't matter. People were like, on the sidelines, just like with their arms wrapped, like looking at me like,
"You loser,
never again."
And was that all part of the growing process?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was painful. That 45 minutes of not knowing what to do was brutal, and it taught me a lot. Just in one thing is like, I got to know my stuff.
Yeah.
It was so easy to fix, and I had no clue, like none.
Know what's crazy about DJing, and the thing I think that I admire most, especially when it comes to, like most industries have like a customer service.
Yeah.
And so like you get the feedback from, like, let's say for instance, myself, I make chains, and then I get the feedback from people who wear the chains, make reviews and all that stuff, Google reviews. When you're a DJ specifically, or in Miami, but it's like a DJ who isn't like a crowd, like a radio DJ, a crowd DJ, a club DJ, whatever. It's one of the very few industries I think out there, much so like a comedian, and I think that's why I admire it, where you're like, how well you're doing is literally instantly known on the spot.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
you're like rocking this crowd, and all of a sudden you throw a tanker out
Yeah,
there,
yeah, and it's weird, it's
everyone just is like, yeah, no, I'm not feeling
Standing.
this. Yeah, and so it's like instantly know whether you're doing well or you're not doing well.
And I mean, you feel it. I mean, if you feel it from the outside,
Hell yeah, I
imagine
feel
like
it.
when a DJ plays a record and it's flat, when you just get no response or a negative energy response, and it's crazy because it's nothing you can see, but you can definitely feel it, and you're like, whoa,
Yeah.
this is not the record, and you got to figure out how to cut out of it and have something to pick people right back up. So it's cool, man. It's
daunting.
crazy, and it can be scary, especially if it's a harder room or a room you're not so familiar with, and you get into this rut where you're playing a couple songs and it's like negative energy after negative energy. You're like, whoa, man, I'm stinking it up.
Yeah. I think that, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that for a DJ, especially when it comes to things like that, and the worst part about it, bro, is you have to. The only way that you're going to know that you're stinking it up is by stinking it up when in the beginning.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
I went through that so many times. I thought I had all the best records, and I thought that's all it was. And then I learned quickly that that's not what it is. And I was in many situations where it didn't matter if I played the top records or not. It just wasn't working. And you'd understand it. You're like, how is it that I'm playing this top record and people are not dancing? It's just that you got to understand that it's not just about the record. It's about the mood, the vibe of the crowd, the energy of the people, what they want to hear. You can kind of gauge it by playing songs, and they lead into other songs. And if you're just trying to play songs because they're hot, it's only gonna, it's not gonna fare well most times.
Do you remember when you started getting good?
Yeah,
And what led to that?
I think I started noticing when I was getting things together a little bit better. We had this club that we would do all the time. And it would play from 10 to 5 a.m., super late. And I just started noticing that, I was being able to change gears when I needed to, and it almost, almost instinctually. Mm-hmm. And so I started saying, okay, well, if I can play hip hop here, and if I see the crowd starting to tire, I could play reggae here. And if they start getting tired, I could play old school here. And you start seeing a rotation. You start seeing that people won't leave because you're still keeping things fresh, So I think maybe in the third year is when things started clicking. And those first 3 years, you really don't know if you're clicking or not. And in most of the parties you're doing, maybe you're doing an hour set, maybe you're opening, maybe you're not getting really enough, enough time to determine whether you're really like
killing it.
Can you kill it? Can you kill a room?
Yeah.
And so once I started getting a couple rooms where I was able to spend some time, and I was like, okay, I did keep them here, and the confidence starts growing. And then there was other venues that helped your mic work going. You're scared about being on a mic. And then there was one venue that I had to be on the mic. It was this one venue where they had go-go girls, and they had, I had to announce body shots.
What?
Oh man, it was terrible. And I didn't want to be on the mic. And it was a terrible paying gig. It was $100 from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. $100.
100 beans?
Terrible.
For 7 hours?
And they made me work 5 days a week. So it was like this 9 to 5 DJ job. But I took it because I was like, well, and it was a bunch of it was like this club / go-go dance, weird Euro kind of. It was a European concept that they brought here. Mm-hmm. And so what they wanted to do was they wanted to have these girls do body shots, right? So it's $30, and if the guy buys it, then I have to do this whole like announcing, the countdown of like the licking and then the lemon. And I'm like, I don't want to do this.
Awful.
It was so terrible. And it was like, I wanted to quit. I was like, man, I don't want to announce this. But then you're forced, it's
you
got to
have
do
no
it.
Choice. Yeah.
And then once you go through it and over and over and over, all of a sudden it's like, oh man, this mic thing isn't so bad after all. And then you start being, more entertaining with it. You start having more fun with this whole 30-second body shot thing, and all of a sudden you're not so bad.
You're freestyling.
Yeah, you're not so shy.
You're doing body shots yourself.
Come on up to the DJ booth.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Let's continue the party. But it's the experience, and that's something that you're gonna have to go through either in a good way or in a bad way. And it went from a really, really bad experience to like overcoming it like a fear, you know, and then you're like, oh, cool, I got this. Like, and then every night it was like 5, 6, 7 different body shots, and you're already just like on the money.
Yeah.
And you're clever, you're witty, you're quick. You try to figure out different ways to do it, and you just start developing this skill set, a different skill set that becomes handy in other clubs. So it was cool. It was good.
Do you remember your first time that you like played somewhere that you learned something that you still use to this day?
What do you mean, like
in another sense? So, like for instance, like I put myself into my career. Like I had a sales job where the sales job was to go in and just kind of like your body shot story right now. It was to walk into a place and sell Panther tickets. If you saw my podcast, I think you told me about it. Like you would just walk into this place and you would have to pitch, you know, a random product to someone. And I learned, even though the job was the shittiest job I've ever fucking had in my life, I learned how to take rejection.
Oh,
and
yeah,
I feel like in DJing, especially DJing, especially something like you trying to, like some of these concepts I think that you're breaking down to me, I've heard them before, and I know a lot of people haven't heard them before. And that's why I asked that question, because is there something, a particular gig that you could remember that you still use that experience to this day?
Trying to think, that's definitely one of them.
Yeah, body shots is horrible, by the way.
It was
and I can't imagine you telling someone to take some body shots. Dog.
Yeah, and I'm just like nervous, sweating. Oh, man,
yeah, hell yeah, terrible. That's awful.
You know, I think I don't know if one gig particularly stands out. I think you know, but the bad ones tend to stick out a little bit. Like I had a couple nights where, you know, when I was younger, I actually did get fired from certain clubs. And
did you?
Yeah, and it was just, you just kind of dumbfounded on like, why did that happen? You know, like what did I do wrong? And I think what it did was you use those experiences. And I mean, there was other ones that happened too as time went on too. And you just kind of look at those and you're just like, well, you know, I'm not doing enough. Like you got to make sure that, you know, what you learn is that this DJ business is not it's not forgiving. Like a lot of these entertainment things is like, you got to be on all the time. You got to be, there's no fives. You got to be a 10 all the time. And people expect it. And people will tell you good things about it. Oh, you rocked it. You killed it. And they could say that to you 1,000 times. But if you go in there to a big club and you tank twice or once, they're like, yeah, we're gonna have to go a different direction. You're not, and you're like, but I rocked this place 1,000 times. They're like, yeah, no, we're gonna go with another DJ, and so you learn it could be unforgiving, and you take those losses, and you tend to remember that, you know, go in there no matter what. Do what you think is going to be the best you can, and always have that mentality. You know, even if you didn't feel like you had your best night, always have that in mind that, you know, your losses were, you know, are going to prevent you from going really far down there. You know, keep it up, keep moving. You know, so
I think that like there's some concepts that you explained to me that I, as a person who at the time I had a friend, our mutual friend, who was an aspiring DJ, and you taught me a bunch of things that I had no idea about. And I think that there's a lot of people that go to a club as a regular patron, such as myself, my entire life, and you get a DJ, and there is a DJ who I think kind of sucks, right?
Yeah.
But in the DJ world, let's say, for instance, he's a very well-respected DJ.
Right.
And everything that you're hearing when you go to a club or you go to anywhere to have a bar is a process of an experience that the DJ wants to take you through.
Right.
And I had no idea that was an actual thing of letting, you know, bringing down a crowd, bringing it back up, bringing it down a crowd. And I don't think a lot of people know that. Yeah. So I want you to explain it to me like how you did 10 years ago or 5 years ago, however long it was.
I mean, you know, it's like anything. It's like a stock. It can't just keep going up and up and up and up. They usually have pullbacks, and it has to. It's just the way things are. It's the same way with DJing. If you're just playing all these hype records, hype,
because sometimes that's what people want, man, and it's crazy.
No, and it's cool. But the problem is like, and especially in a drinking venue environment, you want to have those pullbacks because you want people to go to the bar, take a breather. You don't want to tire them out so much and have them play and run the energy so hard that people are, you know, they'll fade earlier. They're more tired. They're like, oh, okay, you know, and and not to pull back the energy 100%. You don't have to make it like super slow or low or anything like that. But
play a little Whitney Houston.
But it's the same way, like, these performers, to why they program their songs at these concerts and festivals. They have these hype songs when they come out, and they do like ballads in between, and then they end strong. It's the same principle. It's being able to emotionally capture different feelings in one venue, like, yeah, well, let's hype them up. Let's put on a cool hype track, and then let's pull more of a sing along. And let's pull, and sing alongs sometimes don't have to be so hype. They can be more emotional driven. Like, you're having a good time. Oh man, nostalgia. All throwbacks. Why do you play old school? You want people to kind of like, reminisce on an old at a moment, so, and then bring them back to something current that they're listening on the radio. So these are all experiences that you want the client or the person, the club goer to experience while you're there. Or you want to maximize the experience. At least once a DJ starts understanding the capabilities of what you can do. I mean, you can at some point, if you're at some level, you can actually have a club start fighting if you want to play a bunch of fight music.
Nuck if you buck.
I mean, I did that one time when I was back in 2003 when I didn't know better, or 2004, I don't know. And I was this super ghetto club, and I got all ramped up and I got hyped up or whatever, and I started playing a bunch of back to back Little John, We Don't Give a Fuck, We Some Head Busters, all those songs, and like whatever. Lo and behold, after like the fifth or sixth of them, the whole club just starts breaking out.
No.
Like bottles flying everywhere. People like just fighting it. They had to shut the club down at 2 a.m. This club went till 5. And the owner went up to me, you knew what you were doing. Why would you play all that stuff back to back? And I was like, oh, but I didn't know what I was doing. And so DJs do have that power. So, I mean, once you're experienced enough to understand those things, and so you want the experience to be like that. You want to be able to, throw hype stuff, throw emotionally cool stuff, throw throwbacks with vocals, and then come back strong. Let them sing whatever it was that you finished the night off. When you're going to your car, you're still singing that last song because it was that impressionable.
Can you explain to everyone what a sharp left turn is?
So,
I thought this was a really, really cool thing that you taught me years ago as well.
So, we were talking about how energies of or when you're playing a great song, or you're playing and you're in the crowd's doing good, and all of a sudden you run into this wall where you play a couple songs and you could tell people aren't feeling it. They're just like,
Why do you think that happens, by the way? Isn't that a curious thing?
It's weird, man. I don't know. And it could be just it's funny, like you assume that songs don't fade so fast, but to the public, I guess they do. And so like sometimes songs go cold for people. They stop listening to it, and amongst themselves they'll talk crap about the song, and then when they hear it in the club, they're like, whatever, the song's whatever. You go through the motions hoping the DJ goes, moves it on, but then if you play another one, it's like another cold and cold and cold. So as a DJ, you're supposed to recognize, and it happens to all of us, from time to time. You're really guessing, all this time. You're doing power by numbers. You figure if you're right 75, 80% of the time in a club, the club's, the vibe's gonna be good. But there's gonna be that 25, 30% or 20% time where you play a song and it's a miss, and maybe a couple misses in a row. So your job is like, okay, this wasn't working. What do I do? So a sharp left turn is a term that I was given by other DJs, older DJs, and was taught to me. And it's just to make a radically different decision on song, albeit genre, anything. If you're playing hip hop and you want to make a sharp left turn, but you obviously got to see it.
Right.
It's got to be there. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be a negative energy thing. It could be, you got them up and you want to just go way left and just shock them. Like you could do that.
I've been there when you do that. It's
so
crazy.
You could use it both ways. You could use it both when you're stuck in a rut and you need to like figure out a way out, or you want to just shock them and like you got them here, you got them in your pocket, and you just want to like throw something crazy and take a chance and go a different left field. And so you'll play something, radically different. Like if you're playing hip hop, you'll play something, silly like Smash Mouth All Star, so something like that. And everybody just goes crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, and once you do that and they go crazy over it, then you have this song, that song. You could just go off on a rim of like maybe throwback 90s rock songs or whatever, and you just give people like, you lock in.
Yeah.
And it's a cool
I've seen
thing
you
to
do it when you were kind of bombing.
Yeah, and so when you're
Full disclosure.
Also on the flip side, when you're kind of bombing, and I've had those moments where I've been bombing, and you're just like, I need a bailout, and you got to figure out something that'll they'll just shock the crowd to be like, why do you do that? That's cool, you know. And so you'll go from maybe reggaeton to like like
Celine Dion,
something like that, Ace of Base, or something like wild, and they're just like, okay, cool. Whatever, and it could save you. It could save the night, and I think it would be good, creatively for a DJ to at least try to do that once or twice a night if you've got a nice crowd. That way, it's like you just keep things original, you spice it up. It's not predictable. That's the whole point of the left turn. It's to be kind of, whoa.
Yeah.
It's like, what song was that? And those are the songs that people will talk about.
Yeah.
DJ played like so-and-so, and some people might give you a stink face. Like if all of a sudden you're playing hip hop and you want to go into Backstreet Boys and you're just like, and you're a guy, right? And you're looking at it and you're like, song's whack. Why do you play that? Meanwhile, all the girls are singing.
Yeah. Which I think is something that, again, another thing that I learned that is not common knowledge. DJs are not there to play for guys.
Right,
you play for the girls.
No, man. I mean, I was told from the very, 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 very beginning from all the DJs that mentored me. I mean, that was like fundamentally, rule number 1, rule number 2, and rule number 3 all together was for the girls. Make sure the girls are happy because if the girls are singing and dancing, the guys are going to be singing and dancing too.
1,000%.
I've been in clubs where I would, I'd be playing, I don't know, Madonna Into the Groove, and
I love that.
It's a great song.
Great song.
And I see all these girls, dancing or whatever, having a good time, and I see this thugged out guy under his breath singing along, and he knows the song,
of course,
and he's gonna act like he knows the song to try to dance with this girl because that's the whole point. Girls and guys look at club experience is very different. I think girls legitimately go out for the most part to dance and to like get together as girls and do their thing, and guys are really more on the hunt. Guys don't really invite themselves to go dancing. Like like Dane Cook, hey, let's go dancing,
express
guys.
ourselves in the art of dance.
You don't hear that very much with guys. You want to like, oh, let's see what's up. The baddies go to this club. Let's go there.
Yeah.
That's what guys go for mainly, and not all, but I'm just saying a good percentage. So and some go for the music, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, we used to go to the music for the music all the time.
So then, as a DJ, this. I mean, it's once you understand that, you're like, oh, that makes so much sense. Why would I play a bunch of songs that makes the guys go, ooh, 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 on the dance floor? It scares all the girls away. They don't want to deal with that. They don't want to see that. It looks barbaric. It looks, it's terrible. It's awful. And you gotta remember to think about that when you're playing. It's definitely got to be catered more towards the girls. And I'm not saying to exclude the guys. You can definitely play some songs, but especially up until 3 or 2:30, 3. Most girls statistically leave the club around 2:30, 3 o'clock. Guys hang around for this, see if they get a final shot. So at that point, it's okay.
You can play whatever.
Play all the guy songs you want. You want to play all, anything. So that's.
I've heard you now. I've asked you 2 questions, and you both times you've referred back to someone that taught you the sharp left turn, and someone that taught you, that you play for the girls. So in an industry that's so ego driven like that, how hard was it? If you did find a mentor, and the importance of finding a mentor, especially in your field,
I think it's huge to find one. That way you don't have to go through so much.
How did you find one?
You know what? I got connected because I was doing a party with a promoter, and then they moved that party to another venue, and the promoter they linked up with was actually the DJ of the party. So they introduced me, and he was like, "Oh, hand me your demo," and I'm like, "Okay, cool." So I handed him a demo. He told me to make him an opening R&B demo, so I did. he liked it. He was like, all right, cool. Why don't you come and open up for me or whatever? And this was Miguel G.
Oh yeah.
And so he and I did. And I was lucky to where he liked what I was doing, and he was, I guess he felt that I was teachable. He was like, oh, this kid, I can mold him. I can do something with him. And he was the one who taught me, who really, really well did all the basic fundamentals, the most important stuff, the stuff that everybody should know at a young age, learning what the terminologies are, like reading the crowd, right? Really understanding what they want, not just playing music, and understanding the whole girl thing, rotation of bar. Make sure that you see people like going to the bar, getting, like little details, but most importantly, just, being on top of your music, making sure that everything is going great. And he taught me things about drinking too. He was like, have fun, Probably got a little too carried away. Most of
Probably had too much fun.
I was too young to understand that. I would overdrink all the time. But and not just him. I think when it comes to DJing and egos, there's guys that are going to gravitate towards you, and there's guys that just kind of do their thing, and they don't really want to mix up with anybody. There's guys that stick to themselves, or they have people that they work with. And another great guy that I worked with for a while too was Louis D, and he was awesome with me. He taught me a lot of stuff, a lot of experience. And, he would teach me stuff in open format, and he was a house DJ. So he was just really knowledgeable. And I used to come here and play all the time. And he taught me different things about music and emotions, and and he would have, when you hear him do these house sets, it was cool because it's like we were talking about, he would know how to take them up and then take them make it sexy or make it like emotional, make it singing, so it's like you start seeing all these things that you can be capable of doing, and these guys are willing to teach you. So I think, you have to just be out there and find the people that are going to, maybe the people that were nice to me aren't going to be as nice to the next guy. Maybe their personalities just don't click. And that's really what it is. It's being able to click personality wise with these guys, and they see that you don't have an ego. Or maybe the guys with egos like other guys with egos, so it's like finding your crew, and hopefully they can instill some really, really important things, skill sets for you, especially in the beginning. That way you don't run into all these problems, and learn all these bad habits. And some guys, they get these bad habits, and it's hard for them to kick them.
Yeah, I know that I seen you now, and like when we first met, like I said, we were one of my boys was trying to become a DJ. He is a DJ now. You guys have seen him on the first podcast ever.
Yeah,
and Ariel is the guy that we mentioned in that. And for him specifically, and even for myself, man, we gravitated towards you because you were such a positive and like mentoring type of figure. Yeah. And so I ask you that for someone who's been in the game for 22 years and who you do kind of always have a project kid that you work on all the time, and you've influenced a school of DJs that are now flourishing in Miami doing what they do.
Yeah, and it's rewarding, man. It's really cool. It's really cool.
Yeah, tell me why do you do that?
I think it's just because of the fact that I was treated as such, guys like Miguel, guys like Louis, anybody else that I'm in between that I'm missing. But, and I think it kind of goes with the art. I think I want the art of DJing, in my perspective, at least, to continue to develop. And, these guys, they're so good, from Mello to, Moshe to Irwin, to Zeev, all these guys, I hope that they exceed whatever it is that I'm at. The whole idea is that I'm giving them all the information I know so they can just take it to the next level and take it to the next level. Not to say that I'm like done or anything like that, but my goal is to give them that head start that I never had, and I think for DJing, it's nice. You want to make sure that you have DJs out there that understand what's going on, because you don't want to be, this market can be saturated with so many DJs. You're just scratching your head like, how did you learn these things? This is not, and it could be subjective. What I think is wrong could be right to somebody else. But in my eyes, it's nice to be able to, take some of these young guys and have them learn some of the old school mythology, with the new school, because a lot of some old school stuff doesn't work anymore. You gotta, you gotta fix it. You gotta adjust with the times, but you want to instill some of the fundamentals which don't change, and these kids take it and they fly with it.
Yeah.
And it's nice to see. It's nice to sit back and watch guys that I wouldn't even say taught, it's just influenced. And these guys, I leave it up to them. You take all this information and it's on you. I'm not your manager.
Right.
You're doing it.
Yeah.
And you're doing it just by listening to some advice and to some guidance. But these guys are doing it. They're doing it on their own. And so it's rewarding to see that they're not wasting their time with it. And they're actually like taking this and making it a career. It's really cool.
What do you think the biggest difference is from when you started to the younger generation that's coming out now, as someone who has essentially blended the lines of two generations? Because it's not like the Louis D's are too old. I mean, no offense, I'm just saying. Shout out to Louis D. still young guy. That he can't, he's obviously not going to go back and start doing all like the big time gigs. And then you got guys like a Moshe. For those, he's just a local DJ down here. He's a younger cat, and you have essentially blended the line between those two generations, from the Louis D's to the Moshes, who were probably not even alive when you guys were DJing, like legit. You know what I mean?
Or just bored.
Or just bored, right? Exactly. So you now know both those generations. What do you think are the biggest differences, and where do you think the DJ world is headed towards?
Well, the biggest difference, in my opinion, is saturation. Now it's just so. And misinformation, in my opinion, is like, I think it's so much easier, and it's good. It's a good thing to become a DJ now, as opposed to back then. Back then, you really had to, invest. Like you could only there's a certain level where you could only play for as long as you've had records. Like, these guys would come in like with crates and crates. Like, it was a dedication thing. So, a lot of DJs would be able to start, but they felt like, it was, you really had to be a higher level of, like devotion, dedication to it. And now it's not that you don't have to have that dedication, because the work ethic still has to be there, and even more than ever, because I'd say there's more competition now than there was back then. If you weed it out, if you were to able to make it out of your class and still be doing it back then, chances are out of like 15 DJs, you're probably one of like 4 standing.
Right.
You're good. You're going to be working. You're going to work up the ladder, pretty quickly, or at least at some speed. Now it's crazy, like you just see this DJ pop up, and now you can elevate your DJ game not just by DJing. You can develop your career via social media. It's just a way different game. There's guys that created videos during the pandemic, and now they're like these big DJs playing clubs, and like they never DJed a club before.
Isn't that crazy?
So, and that's the reality of it. And if you got celebrity DJs, or you got all kinds of DJs now, where it's just a big playing field, and so it can be challenging and almost overwhelming for somebody to start. But at the same time, there's all the tools. You have all the music. You have you buy a Serato program for $100 or $150 or whatever. Get yourself a laptop, and you already have primetime material, and you just add songs, and you get yourself a basic controller for $300, and you can actually make it work a lot. And back then, it was just, you had to wait for these records to come out, try to find old records, try to find this record, and it's like you're trying to do all these back catalogs, and these records were only available for a certain amount of time, so I'd have to go on eBay and buy them on eBay, and it was crazy. But crazy. I had to have that dedication, to make it if I was going to do it. You couldn't half-ass it back then. And I mean, that's the difference. I think now, you just have a lot more competition. For an older DJ, it's tricky too, because you're not used to having all these hats, wearing all these hats, trying to wear more hats, trying to, maybe I should do a podcast. Maybe I should do videos every day. As an older DJ, it's a lot more challenging. You're just not used to that kind of environment. So it's adaptation can be tricky, and you have to some degree be able to adapt one way or another. And for the young guys, you just have so many different tools and avenues you can do to be successful.
Do you think that you have evolved? I do now, and I would just ask you or challenge you on something that I've known you because I know you personally, and that is what, to touch on what you're talking about, social media and how it's affected you. And I remember in the beginning when we used to like chit chat, I would be the biggest advocate for you to step into that arena where
absolutely.
like you have to do that. And so with the game evolving and social media, and it's true what you're saying, like there's so many people that just jumped on the pandemic and all this stuff and they were on social media and now they're doing all these clubs.
Yeah.
Like how, and you know what the worst part about it is? Sometimes if you're popping on social media and not really popping as a DJ, some club owners will give you gigs just because you're popping on social media.
I mean,
and those are crutches that happen. And for someone like yourself from the older school who had to put in that work, and that's ultimately what got you to the next level, number one, explain to me your reluctancy to a little bit to work with social media, maybe even some of the things, but and how you plan to move your career forward in an ever-changing world that you're going to lose gigs to kids just because they're doing TikTok dances.
And it's going to happen, and when I first started social media, I treated IG kind of like a Facebook, like kind of, just throwing these random pictures and family or like for like really, really bad pictures of your like quality pictures of you and the boys at some club, really bad lighting.
Polaroid quality.
And then no wonder I was only getting like maybe 7 likes on a post. So I was like, okay. And then, and you think it's okay at first, you're like, oh, it's no big deal. But then you start looking around and you start looking at the guys that, have adapted, there's guys in my class, they've been doing as long as me that have done a really good job of adapting and being able to use social media successfully and turn that page, and not be stuck. And I started noticing these guys, and their IG was pretty tight. And I'm like, man, like, this is something I got to work on. And in between meeting you and a couple other guys that were telling me is like, your social media's got to step up. It's not gonna, and funny enough, it's huge because the first thing I get asked when I'm, when a client reaches out to me, I don't even get asked for an EPK anymore. The first thing they ask me is what my IG is. They're
Isn't
like,
that crazy?
The EPK doesn't matter. The EPK became the IG. Yeah, because you put your pictures are
first off, explain what the hell an EPK is. Most people don't even know what that is.
An EPK is an electronic press kit, which showcases your bio, where you've played, what you're currently playing at, and it just showcases pictures.
It's almost like your resume, right?
It's a resume. It's a resume for DJs. So it's supposed to woo the club owners. Be like, wow, this guy plays at all these places. Let's book him. Yeah. It's the same thing as a resume for applying for a job. So, but in the DJ world, that was needed, and any respectable club was asking for those EPKs for DJs because they want to make sure that the DJ was legit, that they had experience, that they are playing at clubs similar to the one they're applying for. So, but nowadays it's the IG has taken over because people ask for the IG, they look at your IG and they'll scroll for a second. They'll see what you got. You got 3 pictures of you rocking a crowd and one lifestyle picture, another one with a video or reel or whatever. And they may be, convinced. They look at your follower count, your likes and all that. So it's become a very, very important part. And had I have not decided to step up and do my my IG like that, I could have lost probably a lot of more opportunities and just been like, they look at me like, he's been around for a long time, but he's not really doing anything. He's, this picture, a bunch of like,
losers in polos.
And it does make a difference. And I try to tell, some of these guys as well, how important it is because, some guys, they don't want to feel like the IG thing is like, they don't want to dive into it because I don't know, for whatever reason, they're too comfortable and they don't want to, I don't want to be fake on it. And it's not being about being fake. It's just you're representing a brand,
Yeah.
If your brand is being represented with like 2,000 followers and a bunch of like faded pics, then you're going to be treated as such, especially nowadays. I mean, unless you've got worldly connections, but even then, like, those guys are going to probably want to step their game up too. So, it's a must. And I realized how important it was. Huge.
There's a very important, I think, factor in any business that you do, and it's the importance of like building relations or connections with the right people. What I noticed in the world of DJing specifically is it's sometimes, yes, of course, it always has to do with your talent. That's ultimately, they're not gonna just put some bum ass DJ at one of the better clubs in the world. But I want to really focus on the fact that in the DJ world, I think is one of the more, it's about who you know and what connections you could build. And I think your biggest attribute, Ariel, is your ability to be able to talk to most people and make some sort of connection with them. But at least to me, it was the fact that you would sit down and make me feel like you were my boy, and I think that eventually that we joined that. And I think that your ability to connect is the reason why you've been so successful. Obviously, you're a great DJ and stuff like that, but your relationships have gotten you to some of the biggest clubs in Miami, and it's because they know you and and what you've built around that. So to a young DJ who has no idea about this, how important is it really to build connections in the DJ world?
It's everything. We talk about IG, we talk about, DJ skills, and, they both fall second or third to relationships and networking. It's everything, absolutely everything. You have to find your way to connect all the dots, and it sounds tough. You're beginning, you don't really know anybody. It's like, man, how do I break this? There's gotta be a way, and you got to create a way if there's no way, like hang out with, maybe a DJ that's doing it, and then figure out the promoters that are doing that. You got to do like a ton of homework, and then be enthusiastically in being able to introduce yourself. And then it's not easy. But over time, over the years, you'll start developing these relationships, and it's all about just being in these venues and being out, being about, especially when you're younger. It's so monumental, unless you're producing and you got a record label taking care of all of that for you. If you're a local guy just trying to get his grind on, and and you don't have, and you're not signed to, any talent agency, it could be very tough. But you have to find your first move. Once you find your first move, and I tell these DJs all the time, wherever you want to play at, you have to live at. You have to live there. Like if you want to play at Komodo
Club in South Beach, Brickell, sorry.
Komodo, you got to live there. Yeah, you got to know everybody. And if you're a nobody, you got to know everybody. And then eventually, somehow, some way, the universe rewards you. It does, man. I don't know. And it's a true testament to venues I've gotten, and to, venues that I've told other people to get to be around. I told Zeev, you want Mint? You got to live Mint. Yeah. And he's there now. Yeah. And it just kind of starts working out. It works out one way or another. And so, and obviously with the lead, so yeah, man, it's the relationships are important. They're everything. And you have to be able to be true to yourself. Don't, people can kind of can smell out a fake vibe.
1,000%.
And that it's not cool. Like, be real, be yourself, and that's going to pay off for you. And in the long run, be genuine. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. We're going to take a sharp left turn here. I'm going to ask you a technical question that I think a lot of people are going to really find interesting, because I'm sure a lot of people that hear this podcast have been to a bar, have been to a club, and have been to like what we would consider like a bottle club, right? Yeah. So like something like that's here in Miami. Yeah. And I've seen you be a chameleon to all three. And I think that's chameleon, the ad-libs. And I think the science behind that is one that I find the most interesting about being a DJ. So I want to know, from a very technical person, which I truly think you are in the art of rocking a crowd, explain to me what that means and why only the very, very best get to play at the places where you hear the Drakes and the Paul Walls and everybody talking about Paul Wall. Listen to me, Paul Wall.
2005.
Yeah, sorry. And the hottest artists talk about, and how they differ from like the bar DJ that plays at your local house.
Here's the thing: is like the bar DJ usually gets hired by the venue, the owner. Smaller organization. You know, it's really just a gig at the moment. It's a gig of the moment. You know, people that come in, they're, you know, just your normal working class, want to get loose on the weekends, have a good time, get some drinks, you know, whatever. So there, you know, but most bars and those clubs, you know, those people aren't probably as trendy as far as like, you know, all about the trend and like what's hot and you know, this hot song. In fact, a lot of those clubs like throwback stuff. You find yourself at a bar hearing a lot of old school stuff, and it makes a lot of sense because it's a lot of people that just, you know, want to have fun and they're just not all about being in that scene. It's like a scene, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
And so you'll find a lot of DJs playing old school stuff and, you know, throwbacks, and you could do a lot of cool stuff there. You know, in my opinion, it's probably the most liberating for DJs to play at these bars because you really don't have a cap. You really can go wherever you want. It's your room. There's no, you know, I mean, as a good DJ, you're hired to do a great job. So you can take the room wherever you want and nobody's going to argue with you. Nobody's going to fight with you. Nobody's going to be like, yo, you know, this table wants to hear so-and-so.
Yeah.
And so and then you come into those clubs, which is, you know, now you've got money on the table. Your money changes everything. You know, you got to, you know, they tell you to play, you know, for example, you know, I did this venue, you know, and I was instructed to play house music and like high energy stuff. And it was like, bam, bam, you know, it was really, really cool. And I was going in, all of a sudden, you know, the manager comes up to me and he's like, yeah, we got a group that's going to spend $25K. We need you to play Luis Miguel. And I'm like, what? And you're just like, and look, the place is slammed. Yeah, you know, we're going to bring out a bottle and we want you to play Luis Miguel back to back. The fact that I didn't even have Luis Miguel, I had to scramble on YouTube and find it, you know, like.
Oh, God.
And so, like, you know, you play it and everybody's just like, what in the, you know, way off. I mean, talk about a left turn.
Not a good one either.
That's like a right turn, you know. Like,
and is that like the bottle culture in Miami?
Bottle culture is dictated by money, power of money, because, you know, it's saying, you know, no matter if the party itself was rocking, it didn't matter. It didn't matter. They would be willing to risk half the room leaving for this Luis Miguel request to satisfy this $25,000 bottle client. Crazy.
That's just nuts, man.
But they're willing to do it. They're okay with it.
Yeah.
Oh, half the people left? I don't care.
Really?
Really? Okay. For $25,000.
Are those the main challenges? Because I ask you this because, you know, I've seen you do a couple of gigs. I've seen my friends do a couple of gigs. And when we would do when I would go see you at this one particular gig in South Beach, which was a really high-end club, high-end clients, I don't ever remember you so insanely hyper-focused. I would almost call it stressed out in a way. I don't know. Maybe I don't want to speak for you. I mean, you could probably tell a story about that. But
yeah, I mean, that's the thing too. It's, you know, with these higher clubs comes with you know, a lot more tension, especially if you're not like a brought in DJ. Because if you're brought in, then they want you to do your thing.
Yeah,
if you're a guy, if you're their resident and you're playing this bottle clubs, it's stressful because, you know, you don't realize how many things they're telling you, and you know, and you're trying to get into a groove. You know, you're trying to instill those old fundamentals, and they kind of go out the window because you're like, yeah, I'm grooving this crowd, I'm grooving it, but then I have to play Luis Miguel. Oh, okay, wasn't what I would have done, but let me build it back up. Oh, now they want to hear Drake, you know, championship bottles. I wasn't going to go either, but okay. And then all of a sudden you try to get back into it. And then like, they want to hear Fade. Oh, okay. They're bringing out another bottle parade. And it's just like, you don't, as a DJ, it's probably tricky to get a rhythm that way. Yeah. Because you're never in rhythm. You're always having to like figure out how to keep it all together. And some DJs like that. Some DJs like the pressure. Some DJs, with the more mic heavy you are, the more you can save those abilities, those situations, because you can talk your way out of it. And that's what a lot of these South Beach guys like, Don Hot and, all these guys are holding premium positions, because they're able to talk so well on the mic and get themselves out of situations where a bottle might change their direction. They can actually narrate it and
explain to the crowd,
cool, and make it cool to the crowd.
Yeah.
Where some of the times I had to do it, we didn't use a mic.
Yeah.
So it was, the crowd was just like, okay, it's weird.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I guess it's cool, but not
and
really.
I think even the long lost art of being on the mic is so incredibly powerful.
Oh, man.
To a DJ, especially to like
the guys doing it now, especially in the hip hop clubs, their mic work is pretty solid, man. You go out there and you listen to these guys, and some people might think they talk a lot or too much.
I hate it. I hate that stuff.
But for whatever reason, promoters, owners love it. They think it animates the venues, it creates an energy, and to an overall experience. I mean, we're talking not just individuals, like overall. I can see that. I can see how command of a mic can be such an asset at some of these bigger clubs, bottle clubs especially. So they want a guy who's solid on the mic to be able to really push these bottles and make somebody feel, like if you got a guy who's great on the mic and the bottles are going out and you're shouting them out and you're ad-libbing you're ad-libbing and you're going and you're hyping it up, it's gonna be a lot better than just bringing out a bottle and you have a DJ who's not saying anything. It's fun. It's completely different vibe, and so that's why these guys with the mics right now at these big clubs, like at least the hip hop side, they're really killing it, man. It's gonna take more than just being a fresh hip hop DJ to take these gigs. You've got to have really good mic work. Yeah. Really good.
What would you say to wrap this up here, Ariel? Because I think it's been a really kind of interesting thought to a lot of people who maybe never understood that this happens in the DJ world.
Yeah.
Maybe they got a lot of insight as to what is in the mind of someone next time they go to a party, next time they go to a club and there's an actual person playing live DJ, and how much really power they have and how much skill is required to rock these parties. People think that it's just about pressing buttons and doing like that. So I want you to give me, and not just like and I'm not trying to coach you through the answer here, but I want like a genuine philosophy or advice to give to someone who is trying to start to get into this world that they can take with them. Maybe they hear you, maybe they're in fucking Wisconsin, who the hell knows, and they take this advice with you and it's genuine, that they can use for the rest of their career.
I mean, we were talking about it, relationships and it's so hard, and but it's not impossible. I think that's the thing. Don't be discouraged. Anything that's worth having isn't going to come easy, so it's going to reward itself in the long run. Just go in there, decide on what you want to do. What DJs do you like to listen to? What style of music do you want to play? All these things. Write a list down of all these goals and styles and situations and, that you want to get yourself familiar with as a DJ, that you want to see yourself grow and become a DJ in a career, and start going one by one. Okay. This DJ sounds a lot like what I want to play. Like, befriend him, hang out, start going to all the venues he's at, not like a psycho, but like as a friend. And it's like I said, some people really take kind, and maybe he's not going to be a nice guy, maybe he will, but he can respect the hustle.
1,000%.
And that will shine and it'll pay off dividends for you if you stay true and consistent to a goal. You knock one goal down, this guy gives you an opportunity. It turns into another opportunity, and it just kind of starts snowballing. And you just have to break that first mold. And that's just don't be fearful, don't, go out there with the intent, with the idea, with the dream, and just work hard and stay on the path. Definitely.
Ariel Assault, thank you for joining me on the Let's Talk Bling. That has nothing to do with bling. That's gonna.
Well, we got Bling.
That's gonna
It's
be
heavy.
the new fucking podcast name.
Talk everything else.
Let's
but
talk.
Bling.
Let's talk bling, but let's not talk about it at all. Thank you, Ariel.